Hi, Steve Stahlberg here with pinup number 30, one of the 2 June rewards in my Patreon subscription. And this one is based on an idea from a Chris Sanders drawing, as I'm sure many people will notice. Anyway, even if I didn't show it, that's the one on the left there. I hope he doesn't mind. I also used some other references you see here, plus some others that may pop up later. And here's my first sketch. Behind here, this one, too similar to Chris's original, with the standing on the toes and all that. So I changed it to a pose I found more natural. It's like she's walking along the side of the beach. I also tried to add a bit more of a storytelling element with an ice cream there. It sort of explains more what's happening, her feelings. She can't really reach over with the ice cream in her hand. She can't put it down on the sand. There's no one around at this moment to hold it for her. And she can't hold it with her mouth, so she's in a bit of a spot. What she can do, I guess, is drop the ring on the ground, but then she still has, and that's tricky also to do, because she has to pass the ice cream through the ring, and etc., etc., blah blah blah. There's this whole there's this whole story that sort of unfolds with this just from this one single accident of one knot unlooping itself. So happy with the sketch, happy with the composition in the sketch and the storytelling. I'm gonna clean it up now and start coloring it. It's a very simple painting per se. There's just like one background and then one thing in the foreground, and the background is fairly simple, straightforward. Blue sky, bit of ocean, bit of sand, but it's tricky also. You gotta get the colors right to make it look inviting, to make it look tropical, to make it look hot. It's easy to get the blues, the wrong kind of blues, and so on, you know, because there's a few different kinds of blues here that have to go together. The ocean is one blue, and the sky is another, and they're actually quite set. It's not, they don't vary much from around the earth. The sky doesn't vary much, and the ocean also. If you have a sandy beach with light colored sand, the sand extends down under the water, so that's what makes the edge of the water not glow, but it has this glow that compared to other beaches where there's a dark rocky bottom or dark sand or mud, so you get these particular colors together: typical sand color, typical ocean color, typical cloud color, and typical sky color. And you gotta try to get them right. And I didn't get them quite right at first, because right here I'm just working from memory. So later on I'm gonna get an image out, one that I thought, according to my memory, looked most like what I remember a pleasant tropical beach to look like. Of course, the best would be to go to a tropical beach and sit there and make sketches and such, but yeah, no, that's what we have Google for. Google saves us a lot of money on plane tickets as artists. Okay, yeah. Checking my notes here, just trying to get a generic tropical beach sunny day feeling. With sunny day, you know, it's kind of noon usually when you try to get that feeling, so I make her shadow fairly small. I make the direction of the light coming from pretty much straight up top. And so you gotta remember that too when when you do the clouds. You got to keep the lighting direction in mind with everything. The highlight on the hair also is typical for when the lighting comes from right up top. The shading on the ring, the direction of the shadows, pretty much vertical. She's going to be catching light on the breast, on the shoulder, on the arm, and a bit here on the hip and butt, lower legs. This foot is going to get a little highlight as well. The ice cream and the hand are in shadow from the ring, and the face is completely in shadow, which is a bit tricky also. So for the face, the main light on the face is coming from below, actually. This is bounce light coming from of her own body right here, mostly. A little bit from the beach also. The sand. This light sand bounces a lot of light, and it's usually warm light because sand is warm colored. So similar situation when light bounces off gold metal and skin. The light comes off colored reddish, which is cool because as opposed to light that bounces down from the sky, which is colored blue or cool. So you can get here's that beach reference I mentioned. So you can get a lot of fun, cool, subtle lighting effects by using those in juxtaposition. Hot light coming from below and cold light coming from above. When I say cold light, it doesn't include the sun, of course. The sun is it's fairly neutral. We've evolved to look at sunlight as neutral. To us, sunlight looks white because that's the sunlight that we've evolved in to be able to use our receptors, our photoreceptors, the best, I guess. So actual direct sunlight doesn't really have it. It can be, as a convention, sometimes people color it slightly yellowish, especially in computer graphics when you're making a scene and you're making a sunlight. You may sometimes want to color it slightly golden yellow just to offset the bluish tone that you're giving the sky. Because usually in computer graphics you have to account for both. You have to make the skylight and you have to make it bluish, and you have to create the sunlight and you have to make it a little opposite of blue, which is warm yellow. I talked straight through the color flattening there when I did the layers. You can see the layers here on the edge a little bit here. Sketch at the top, bikini, girl, hair, ice cream, ring, and background. Ice cream is dripping a little just to sort of set the stage more, set the tone, because ice cream always starts dripping after you buy it at the vendor. If the day is hot enough, it always starts dripping before you get back to wherever you're going to eat your ice cream. And you can see here I've changed the color since the beginning, since the initial color. I tweaked the colors a little bit. I'm going to add clouds soon. These clouds aren't. They're just sort of temporary stand-in clouds. And I'm experimenting a little bit with texture here. I'm working on a different layer, trying to create a wave texture. I'm using a brush that I use for ground. It creates an effect of leaves sometimes, depending on how you use it. Leaves or shadows on the ground. And in this case it worked well for the waves also. And I got these subtle tones here right at the edge of the water from that reference photo that you saw earlier. And this sort of glowing green color is really fun to put in because you just use it sparingly right at the edge to show a wave that is cresting a little bit more than other waves, to show translucency and light coming through from the other side. But it is really a nice effect. And here also the skin tones are also important, because we know very well what skin looks like in sunlight. So I wanted to make her a little bit tanned, not too much, and or well, actually she is quite tanned. She lives on the beach. She likes the beach. She's there a lot. But maybe she's not used to her bikinis unraveling like this. But anyway, I got some reference for the sunlight on skin kind of colors, and I'm trying to follow that. You see, I'm trying to keep it kind of hot here at the terminator, as some people say, and kind of hot here, and kind of hot here. That area here is a bit too hot, though. I'm going to calm that down a bit later. But you see this nose area that's warmer than usual. That's on purpose. Also the feet have this warmer feeling. But then there's a cooler tone here on the butt, which is that's how skin reacts to strong light, because skin is filled with blood. So right at the edge of the shadow, you'll see a warmer tone. And as I said here, it won't be too hot right where the sun shines, because that's going to make the skin look like metal. You have to cool that area down. It has to be comparatively quite cool, because as I said before, we see sunlight as pretty much neutral white, even though it may not be perfectly, but that's the impression it gets. And here you can see what I'm doing to the face. I'm just sort of redrawing the initial sketch with more fidelity, more carefully, sort of just drawing over it with a finer brush. And I'm going to make the eyes separately on a layer, because those are just they're just tricky enough to warrant special treatment. I often have a little bit of problem with the eyes. They're very complex. They change a lot due to the whatever is the lighting situation. Because they're both very, very shiny and also translucent. And as if that wasn't enough, they're refractive. So they catch light coming in, they focus it, and then they emit it in focused areas. You know, like focus the light to certain areas that make sort of glowy spots sometimes. Not in this case. That would have been more if the sun was actually hitting her eyeballs. You would probably have seen some kind of refraction going. But these are all the things you got to keep in mind when painting eyes. Also, shadow cast from the edge of the eyes, you know, complicates things even more. The eyelashes, the upper eyelashes, for instance, they throw a lot of shadow, both upwards and downwards. The lower eyelids here, you can see I'm making them throw a little shadow upwards. You know, imagining that the light is coming from below. I'm creating highlights here, 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 and here, and also here, because those are the downward facing surfaces. Also a little bit on her ear right there. But shadow right here, because that is, pardon the expression, a crevice. It's a narrow area where light is not able to penetrate as much as. It's a concave area. It's an extremely concave area. It's a crevice basically. It's as opposed to the chin, which is a convex area, something that pushes outwards away from the main shape. This pushes into the main shape. So it's a bit like AO. It's a bit like ambient occlusion, if you're familiar with 3D computer graphics stuff. You know, Actually, there's one reason. There's one good reason for 2D artists to actually try to get into 3D a little bit is to learn more about light and how it interplays. Also, you'll learn more about sculpting shapes. So these are the two huge benefits that I feel that I myself have gotten out of going into 3D about 25 years ago when I started. I have learned so much from 3D that applies to my 2D. I'm going to jump forward a little bit now, just detailing the face. When I zoomed out, I noticed that this was a little bit too much light on the cheeks. It makes her look puffy-cheeked. So I flattened that a little bit later. You'll see. I'm going really close to do some. You want to keep this line blurry. You don't want to have that too sharp. You don't want to have this line too sharp either. If you zoom in on your own eye or anybody else's eyes, you'll understand what I mean. Nothing is really sharp, which is an error that is very common in 3D. 3D computer graphics, you can easily get sharp edges everywhere, and so that's just something to watch out for in 3D, but also in 2D. If you do it this way, if you're masking the iris with a mask, yeah, you can very easily end up with extremely sharp outlines like you see here around her body. This is okay here, but it's not okay inside the eye. Almost every single edge in here is blurry for one reason or another. The iris is blurred against the sclera for the reason of the way that it's constructed. In the real eye, there is no sharp edge there. There is a soft transition. Also, the black part is blurred towards the iris. The pupil is blurred towards the iris for a slightly different reason, because the iris curves inwards gradually right at the edge. There is no sharp edge there, so there's usually a soft shadow that blurs that edge a little bit. Other edges are softened because of translucency. There will never be a sharp shadow edge anywhere in the eye, because when you try to cast a sharp shadow on top of a translucent surface, you'll see that from most angles, if you tilt the camera a little bit, you'll see the shadow becomes a volume. It sinks into the form, so you get this soft transition no matter what you do. I think the only sharp thing in an eyeball can possibly be a very, very sharp highlight. That could be sharp, and you can do that last. You do the selection just like I'm doing these clouds here. You just do a selection right at the end after you're done painting everything else in the eye, or put it on a layer, and then you just sort of lightly airbrush against the edge. And yeah, there's no need to soften. There's no need to soften that particular edge. The reflection can be sharp, but everything else has to be kind of soft in the eye. That'll be more realistic. You see, these clouds were very quickly made. Single selection. Here a bit of reflecting down into the ocean. Vertical. You get vertical streaks like this because of the microstructure of the ocean. You get these vertical streaks, and then a little bit of shadow on the lower parts, lower sides of the clouds, which is a different color. The first color I added was just plain white. Here I'm going with a less saturated blue, which makes it look kind of gray compared to the other blue, kind of gray purplish, but it isn't really purple. It's just less saturated blue, and that's the effect that you get from that. And the important thing is not to cover it completely, and not the important thing is to be a little careful with your strokes, like Sargent. I mean, obviously this isn't anywhere near the level of a Sargent painting, but that's or Zorn, Sargent or Anders Zorn. That's what they would do. They would consider each brushstroke very carefully. It may look haphazard to us. It may look random and smudgy and smeary, but the reason why it looks so good is because they put careful consideration behind each stroke, and so just don't go waka 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 all over the place with a brush and close your eyes. Just don't do it randomly. Think a little bit about it. Go slower, a little slower than you might have wanted to do. You just saw a reference flash by there. That was a ring that I found again on Google, of a slightly transparent ring that I thought looked better than my initial idea to have an opaque ring, and I wanted to sort of catch that blue, the sky blue through here. Now the problem with that is because these colors are so overdriven, oversaturated compared to reality, it's not there's a technical problem here. This color showing through this color transparently becomes gray, so I'm having a little bit of problem there making it work out. It's not working quite like I wanted it to. You can see here this looks a little darker and grayer than it should. So the reason for that is simply that this purple pink, this color is just too strong. If I brought down the saturation on this, I would be able to I would more be able to get the look that I want. But I still got close to it, I think. I didn't want to bring down the saturation here because I thought it looks so nice the way it is. So yeah. Yeah, it's nearly done now. There it is. That's the finished one. Let me see if there's something I've forgotten to mention here. I added some spots on the beach, but the beach is very simply drawn, as you can see. The clouds are still this very simple sort of impressionistic or expressionistic way. The ice cream is also very simple. I just I put down you know, I focus most of the energy on the face and the butt, as I usually do. Okay, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.